is going on? Blossom's back, and welcome back to another episode of Blossom's Ultimate Upgrade Guide. We left off in the last episode of RQ56, and fun fact, RQ56 was a very small RQ. It was about 20 cars, but now we're diving into RQ57, and this is massive, almost double the size. There are 37 cars in the game currently that are RQ57. When I mean in the game currently, it means up to JPT. Obviously, RQ changes are a dime a dozen, and they'll keep coming with every major update. But for now, everything in the series is still up to date. So today we are sponsored with these 6 cars. The artwork is called Cars That I Never Own. I've never unpacked the Subaru Legacy 2, and I've unpacked everything else, but I've fused them all away. My biggest regret being the Peugeot 205. That's actually pretty good, but more on that in a bit. Now, you guys know how the series goes. I'm going to tell you the cars, in my opinion, what I would do to them if I own them. So, I mean, a lot of these cars I own already, and I have done what I'm about to say. So we're going to talk about 969, 996, and 699, or in order, 969, 699, and 996. And then after this, I will show you my priority list of every RQ57 car in the game, which hopefully it will help you if you are a beginner player, intermediate player, or advanced player. So let's get cracking with 969. I think it's fair to say that there isn't many controversial picks over here. You got your 4-wheel drive medium performance tire cars, and you got your off-roaders, your all-surface tire cars. The only one which some people might think, why would you 969, is the Bentley Mulsanne design series. Now, why am I putting this in 969? Because in RQ57, there are 2 Bentleys that are exactly the same. The Bentley Mulsanne and the Bentley Design Series. So, you know how some people, like when you get a Lotus 340R, like a lot of players would get like 2 or 3, and they would like maybe 6992 and 9691? Well, since these 2 Bentleys are completely the same, you can basically use them as the same car, and then 9691 and 6991 if you are a Bentley collector. So, these cars are basically the same. They weigh the same, both at 2,585 kgs. They both have 80 handling. They both have 5.10 to 60, and they both have 184 top speed. Obviously, I have Top Drive's clubs open on my second monitor, so I can reference all these stats really quickly. The only difference setting them, separating both of them, are the pictures. Their MRA is basically the same as well, 73.76. So take your pick. But really, like I said, the only reason why I'm putting the Mulsanne here is based off the logic how when some people own a Lotus 135 or a 340R, they would 6991 and 969 the other. So this one is like, you can do that, but with 2 different cars, but these 2 different cars are actually the same. But everything else should be pretty fundamental. Now, this is 969 continued because, like I said, this is a very big RQ range, very big, you know, RQ57 has a very big car pool, 37 cars, right? So this one over here, once again, nothing too special, right? It's going to be your 4-wheel drive, medium ground clearance performance in the Volvo V70R, and the rest are going to be all-surface tires. The only thing I can see people maybe disagreeing me with, it will be the Range Rover P400. The thing with the Range Rover P400 is that although it has a low 0 to 60 and it doesn't have very good handling, it's going to get obliterated, okay, by the Trailblazer SS, which is cheaper to use in RQ as well. So moving on now to 699. Once again, as you can see, a lot of low ground clearance performance tire cars, a lot of twisty cars, hybrid cars, not drag cars, because that's going to be 996. So the cars that we see in here range from the Nissan 370Z Nismo to the other Bentley Mulsanne, as I was talking about. There it is, its twin brother, the BMW 135 convertible, the Chrysler Phaeton, the Honda Civic Type R, etc., etc., etc. So I want to talk about maybe some interesting takes. The first one is going to be the Phaeton, the Chrysler Phaeton. Why is the Chrysler Phaeton, in my opinion, not 996? Here's the thing. I've already tested out these Chryslers in the RQ56 video, and if you watched that video, you would have seen that a 699 Chrysler Phaeton was going to beat the other 2 concept Chryslers regardless, the Fish Car, and what's the other one? The Atlantic. So 996 in the Chrysler Phaeton would only beat a 699 version of itself. That being said, the Chrysler Phaeton isn't really a 100% drag car because it has decent handling, okay? Not the best, 78 is definitely not good, but it's good enough for a fast circuit, a rolling fast circuit, and a hairpin. So For those reasons and the fact that it already beats the other two Chryslers at 699, I think that the Chrysler Phaeton is a 699 upgraded car. Now, moving on, the other controversial pick over here would be the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1 and the Maserati Tipo Birdcage. I think everything else kind of makes sense. The AMG SLK32, the AMG SL73, and the 450, the TBR. These three cars at the bottom, they're basically the same thing, really. I mean, they're all convertibles, and their handling is literally in that range of 79 to 78. The only thing really setting them apart is that the AMG SL73 has a much lower 0 to 60. So, Blossom, people might be wondering, Blossom, if it has such a low 0 to 60, why isn't this car 996? Now, the problem with the Mercedes AMG SL73 is that for some strange reason, it has an MRA of 68.57. Why? I don't know. It's also very, very heavy, coming in at 2,050 kgs stock. So definitely do not put this on a slalom. Do not put this on a twisty road. It's just not going to perform very well. The AMG SL73 really is one of those big disappointing cars. But moving on from the convertibles, and once again, we're going to be talking about another convertible, but in a different matter, which is the Maserati Tipo 61 Birdcage. Why is the Birdcage 699? Now, the main reason why I put the Birdcage in 699 is because, first of all, it is one of the lightest cars in the game, coming in at 600 kg stock. I know that the handling isn't good. Our 77, you max it out 699, it'll hit 85, but I'm really weighing in on its strength here, which I do believe its strongest strength is that 600 kg weight. Because when you think about it, yes, it has 82 MRA, yes, it has a high top speed and a relatively low 0 to 60, which would make you think it's a drag car. But if you filter by every ultra rare that is before 1960s, pre-1960s, there is one car that is better, and that is the Aston Martin DB3S. It has better MRA and a lower 0 to 60, so that is the car that you probably want to use, and it has better handling as well. The only thing the Birdcage has over the DB3S is going to be the weight. The DB3S is a light car, but the Birdcage is a lighter car. And last but not least, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1. Now, this might confuse a couple people because, I've basically put every other four-wheel drive performance tire, medium ground clearance, ultra rare RQ57 car in the 969 category. Why is the Lancer Evo 1 in the 699 category? Well, I look at the Lancer differently. Like I said, this is my opinion, and this is how I would upgrade every car if I only had one. The Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1. I look at this as a twisty car. I look at it as a twisty car. I look at this as a dry car. This is a car that is, so diverse because of that low 0 to 60 for its category, which is a four-wheel drive, medium ground clearance car. It has really good handling, and it is a pretty light car as well, coming in at only 1,240 kilograms stock. I see this as a twisty car. I like to put it in dry conditions, and it's going to beat all the other four-wheel drives. To me, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1 is one of the best, I would say, mid-range to low-end four-wheel drive medium ground clearance cars in the game, because it's one of those specialist cars where it has, I would say, RQ60 stats for a four-wheel drive performance tire car, for a four-wheel drive medium ground clearance car. 81 handling and 5.20 to 60 is very impressive, because when you compare it to its predecessors, 5281, you compare it to the Volvo 62, a whole second slower, 82, or the Lancer Delta 60 to 83. So this is a dry car in my opinion. The Lancer Evo 1 is basically my go-to if I cannot use the Evo 4, and that's exactly what it is. It's a baby Evo 4. And at the same time, I own 4 Evo 4s max. Only one of them is actually 969. The other 3 are all 699, because I've come to realize that I actually use these cars a lot more in the dry than I do in the wet, and that also kind of what's English right now? And then, because that also kind of correlates to the fact that there are usually more dry tracks in the game than wet tracks. Like, there are more dry events than wet events on average. So that is my opinion. I think the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1 should be a 699 car. Now, last but not least for the tunes, the drag cars goes to the TVR Griffith 500, the TVR Chimera 5.0, and the Chevrolet Aerovet. These are cars which, basically have very, very bad handling. This is like beneath 77. I would say 77 is a very lenient threshold. For RQ57, I really should be making the threshold more like 79, 80, but there are too many cars there where it has about 79, 78 handling, which don't deserve to be in this category anyway. So for this purposes, 77 handling or below should be here, or should I say 76 and and below should be here. But also, you know, accompanied with that handling, that low handling score, they have relatively high 0 to 60s. It gets higher from the TVR to the Aerovet, 157, 167, and 175, and they have low 0 to 60s as well. 4.1 on the Chimera is ridiculous. It's the lowest MRA for an RQ57 car. Now, I know it says 56 over here, but that's because this picture is outdated as I sourced it from Top Drives Club. Now, last but not least are the duplicates. These are cars that I would get duplicates, multiple of. No matter what kind of player you are, advanced, intermediate, or beginner, you should be looking for duplicates for these cars. The first one would be the Suzuki Ignis. This is a fantastic car. It has decent MRA. Let me just find it out right here. Yep, it has 86 MRA. And for an Ultra Resident, decent. That's good. Very good MRA. Relatively low 0 to 60. High handling. Very high handling. Also, another trump card, medium ground clearance in the Ignis. Cannot have too little of that. The next one is the Opel Corsa Super 1600. It is an off-road beast. It used to be the best front-wheel drive off-roader, and then the Dodge Avenger has now come into play. Next up is the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1. Like I said, for the first one, 699. Second one, you can do 969. And the last one is going to be the Honda Civic Type R. It is a great little hybrid with a high top speed, a low 0 to 60, and great handling stats for a front-wheel drive car. It kind of is a jack of all trades, but also a master of being a jack of all trades almost. The MRA in the Civic Type R for a Japanese car is actually, and not only for a Japanese car, but for a front-wheel drive car, it's actually very strong. 77 MRA as well. Now, I know it's no Suzuki Ignis, and this should be the replacement to the Civic because of the lower 0 to 60, the same handling, the better MRA, but then again, there is a, you know, 0 to 60 difference there as well. Vitesse. That's a soccer team. I like that. Anyway, guys, that's going to be what I think and how I would tune each of these cars in RQ57 if I would only have one of them. Let's move on to my rankings. And we are back, of course, in Tier Maker, and as you can see over here, I've switched my camera sides, but also, I think you guys know how it works on this series already. We got Priority 1. These are cars that you should collect. Any player should collect. Priority 2 is cars that most players should collect. Priority 3 is if you find yourself an intermediate player in the game. Maybe you already have maybe 50 to 60 Ultra Rares max, and you kind of want to expand your horizons. You know, that's for the intermediates. Priority 4 is for the advanced player. This is like over 100 Ultra Rares max, and you're kind of running out of things that you want to max, and these are the cars that you should focus on. And last but not least, hot garbage. These are the hot garbage cars. Obviously, we always have to have hot garbage. These are for the collectors. These cars are literally almost useless every single time. So maxing them out makes very little sense unless you are a collector. So let's start off with Priority 1. No surprise here. All the 4 cars, when I said get dupes, get Priority 1. These cars are fantastic in their own right. The Suzuki's Ignis is kind of like the king Japanese car for front-wheel drive, but the Honda Civic is basically the same as the Ignis if you can't use slick tires. And also, if you need a higher top speed, if you know, maybe there's some track sets where out of the 4 track sets, 2 of them maybe have a quarter mile and a half mile, or maybe more of like a half mile and a 1 mile, because the Ignis, you can deploy that on a quarter mile, so maybe a half mile and a 1 mile. Then you might want to use the Honda Civic Type R, especially if there's a test pull. Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1, like I said, it's like a bargain Evo 4, very, very good car. And of course, the Opel Corsa Super 1600 is like the big boy version of the Opel Adam. Now, moving on to Priority 2, this one's going to stir some heads. The Caterham 7360. This is the best car. I would say it's like the best like rear-wheel drive twisty car for RQ57. But at the same time, I have to ask myself, when was the last time I actually used the 7360? Because if I want to go high, I would go Lotus 340R. And if I wanted to save RQ of a twisty car, and usually you want to save RQ of a twisty car because it is more lenient to lose on a twisty than a drag. Like, you know, for example, if you lose by 3 seconds on a twisty, you still lose by 50 points. You lose by 3 seconds on a drag, and that's going to be like 70 to 80, right? So the Caterham 7360 is in a weird spot where it's not the best car and it's pretty expensive to use. It's not a good bargain. It's a good car, but it's not a good bargain. The Lotus 340R is better, and if I wanted to really save RQ, I would use the Lotus 135 or the Dodge Circuit EV. So because of that little, you know, problem where I find it very hard to put it anywhere and use it, I have to put it down a rank. That being said, though, I still acknowledge that the Caterham 7360 is a very strong rear-wheel drive car. Very, very light and decent handling, I would say. It's a little under average for a Caterham, though. Moving on is the Nissan 370Z. This is a hybrid version. It's a rear-wheel drive version of the the Honda Civic Type R, right? You know, it's a low 0 to 60, great handling. The top speed isn't like 120. The MRA isn't spectacular. I mean, the MRA on the Nissan 370Z Nismo is actually 74.26. Not spectacular, but not bad. In fact, pretty decent for a Japanese car. Peugeot 205 T16. This is the only car which I've used many times in the past, which I regret because obviously I have a vendetta against French cars. But now I'm starting to realize that the 205 T16 is actually really freaking useful. And then the BMW X3, I'm putting it pretty high because of its handling. It can hit 80 handling, which is pretty rare for a lot of all-surface tire SUVs in the ultra-rare ranks. The Chrysler Phaeton is basically the king ultra-rare Phaeton, or the king ultra-rare Chrysler. The TVR Chimera, the Chevrolet Aerovet, both of them are great dragsters, but kind of like the Caterham 360. If you're gonna go high on dragsters, you're gonna use the Tamora, and if you're gonna go low on dragsters, you're gonna use the Charger 3, and the Charger 3 would send the Aerovet and the Chimera to Gapplebee's, right? The only time you want to use the Aerovet to beat the Charger 3 would be in a test bowl, but if it was test bowl that we're talking about, you can use a much cheaper car in the Thanos Countach. So kind of like the Caterham, the Chimera and the Aerovet, they're great cars for RQ7 if it was only limited to RQ7, but I have to dock it down a rank because it does get demolished by cars lower in RQ to it. And finally, the BMW 435i, medium ground clearance, decent handling on it as well. It's just a bit of a hybrid car with medium ground clearance. Now, priority 3 is going to be the Maserati Tipo Birdcage along with the Donkavor D8. Now the Donkavor D8, basically it's just a worse version of the Caterham, right? So I have to bring it down one. And then over here the Legacy is a slightly worse version of the 205, sorry, because the 205 also has that 80s niche that the Legacy doesn't. But the Legacy also has that estate niche, and it has decent MRA for a Subaru. The MRA on the Legacy is actually 69. Not high, but for a Subaru, definitely not bad. The Ford Taurus Show has a low 0 to 60, and the Lancia Delta is one of the best handling four-wheel drive medium ground clearance RQ57. So all of them kind of share a spot in basically decent cars. They will have their moments, but you don't need to use them all the time. Now the Lotus Exige S2, this one's also going to turn some heads. I think that the Lotus Exige S2 is a massive disappointment. Now hear me out, right? It has amazing handling. It's a lightweight car coming in at 116 kg stock, and it even has 85 MRA. But here's the thing. It does have really good MRA, but that 0 to 60 is ridiculously horrendous. When you think about it, the top speed isn't very high either, so with a not so high MRA, with a not so high top speed, you can't really put it on a test bowl or a 1 mile or even a half mile. I get it as 85 MRA, but 5.80 to 60 is horrendous. I mean, when you think about it, it's almost the same 0 to 60 as a car that isn't even in its category. This is a twisty, low ground clearance car, that should be based off performance. This is a medium ground clearance four-wheel drive estate, for crying out loud, and they almost have the same 0 to 60, which in my opinion is very, very sad. I know the handling is very good, but at the end of the day, come on guys, I'd rather use the Caterham 360, and I wouldn't even use that because I'd rather use the Lotus 340R, or if I have to save RQ, the Lotus 135. And at the same time, now with the introduction of the Suzuki Ignis, these two cars are basically very similar because they have no top speed. They have MRA, they handle well, but here's the thing, right? The 0 to 60 difference, 0.6. You put those two cars in a quarter mile, and the Suzuki Ignis is still going to take it. So unfortunately, the Lotus Exige S2 might look really good on paper, but in my opinion, my personal opinion, I think it's a bit of a disappointment. Now moving on, it's an underachiever, underperformer. Moving on to Nissan Pathfinder, once again, very, very good handling on this. The only problem why I'm not putting it up here with the X3 is because it's a lot slower, and it has 74 handling, by the way. This is the old picture. It has 74 now, and it might even get nerfed in a later update, according to Hutch. Now, next one is the Cadillac XLRV. Bit of a hybrid. Handling could be better, though, but still not a bad car. And obviously, I've already talked about a bit of all these hybrids already. Now, the TVR Griffith is also down because it's kind of worse than the TVR Chimera and the Aerovet. Lower, top speed, and a worse 0 to 60 than both of them. Now, moving on to priority 4. Now, the Volvo V70R. Not a good car at all. The MRA on this thing is horrendous. It's 61 MRA, and it handles less than the Delta. The Delta, funny enough, has better MRA, a lower 0 to 60, and better handling. The only thing the Volvo has above the Delta is a higher top speed, which is almost irrelevant for a car in its class. And obviously, in the twisty situations, it's going to lose to the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 1 everywhere. So it's a bit of a disappointment. The 61 MRA is also not much to gloat about. The Atlantic, sorry, not the Atlantic, but the Chrysler Imperial Concept, never ever use it. The Dodge Magnum has a little bit of handling over there, but that's about it. It has medium ground clearance, I do believe, but you know, it's a car that kind of just misses the mark everywhere. Not even the MRA can save it. 72 is very mediocre for a Dodge, especially for a Hemi. Come on. Jaguar S-Type R, it's kind of like the Magnum, right? Just a little higher 0 to 60, but a little better handling. And then we have these two Mercedes over here. Now, I'm really inclined to put the SL73 in hot garbage, but I think that's a bit too tough, because here's the thing, right? It has no MRA, so even though it has its low 0 to 60 and a high top speed, it's not going to really get a high score on the test bowl. It's not going to do well in the 1 mile. It's not going to do well in the half mile. But you can't really put it in a twisty situation either, because the AMG SL73 is so freaking heavy. You can't put it on a slalom. You can't put it on a, you can't really put it on a G-force, especially when there are cars like the Exige S2 and the Caterham 360 in its RQ. You can't put it on a twisty road. So what is it? A fast circuit car? A hairpin car? It's not even the best there, so it's a very, very weak machine, and I feel like I'm generous to put it in priority 4. Now the Volkswagen Touareg as well, it's very heavy, but the handling is all right, and of course the Evoque, right? Once again, the handling's all right, but still not as good as the Pathfinder or the BMW X3. Now moving on now is the two Bentley Mulsannes. I mean, once again, you get high top speed, no MRA, medium ground clearance, but they don't handle as well, so it's kind of like they're basically Bentleys, right? They miss the mark everywhere. And last but not least is the Mercedes-Benz E430. Now, the Mercedes-Benz E430 has the MRA. I think it has 88 MRA. Yep, 88.73. But the main problem of the Mercedes-Benz E430 is it has a very bad 0 to 60. So for that, I kind of only use it as a fast circuit wet car. Last but not least, hot garbage. These are cars that are absolutely useless, okay? All of them suck. The only thing that the X5, I was kind of tempted to put it in priority 4 when I was making this video, because solely based off the fact that it has the eco-friendly tag. But then again, when you think about it, unlike estates we get to see them use in top drives pretty often. Eco-friendly, almost never. So there are some tags that are more important than others when it comes to judging all these cars, in my opinion, and eco-friendly is definitely one of the most useless ones. So for that, the BMW X5 ultimately gets hot garbage, along with two other BMW brothers and a Range Rover P400, which will be sent to Gapplebee's by the Trailblazer at a much lower RQ. But anyway, guys, that's going to be my review of RQ57. Let me know if you found this video helpful, and if you disagree or agree, let me know down in the comments below. But like I said, pretty long video this one, because it's a pretty big RQ. Over, like, what, almost 40 cars for one RQ? That's pretty insane. But anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I'm gonna stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace!